何も言わなくても出てくるのね。あ、お通しですって言って目の前に怒られるの。
Welcome to the Lazy Fluency podcast, where we have casual conversations switching between English and Japanese so that you can learn from and with us along the way. I'm Joey.
And I'm Yami.
And the topic of the day is Ripoffs in Japan. Before we get into that, make sure to like, subscribe, follow, and or drop a review on whatever platform you're listening on. We appreciate the support. And with that out of the way, Ripoffs in Japan. You and two other friends find yourself in Japan. You want to study or maybe just hang out and maybe get some food. Where should you go? Today we're talking about ripoffs in Japan, and this episode was brought to you by an extremely terrible place that made me want to rip my eyes out, and it's the first time I've ever been so furious going to eat at an establishment in Japan. As I'm a man of class, I won't directly call it the establishment, also because that could also be indirect doxing of some sort. But the place made me so angry, and I mean, can you describe my anger? How angry was I from this interaction?
なんかどっから始めればいいか分かんないけど、まあある日ね、ある居酒屋的なところのお店に行ったわけよ。で、そこはまあおでんを提供してますと。おでんのまあ食べ放題的な感じのでね、提供してて。おでん食べ放題1000円って書いてあったのね。お、これ1000円でおでんが食べ放題ってなんていうの？
All you can eat.
そうそう。できるなら、結構お得じゃんと思って。行ってみるかって言って、まあ入ってるわけよ。はい。で、入りましたと。で、まあメニュー見ると、おでん1000円食べ放題って書いてあって、その下の方にね、メニューの下の方に、ただし、一人一品頼んで、くださいって書いてあったのね。だからそれぞれ、なんだ、食べ放題、おでんの食べ放題したい人は、一人一品頼まないとおでんの食べ放題はできませんよって。はい。で、まあ、そこで、まあ、ちょっとこれ、なんかやられたなみたいな感じだったのね。
Well, I should also mention that the outdoor promotion did not mention this smite thing. So there's a thing, I call myself the text reader man, which is to say, anytime I see Japanese text, my eyes just want to read it. And so I will stare at signs random. This is why I think I noticed this Oden sign, and I look at all the places on the sign. And the sign had no exception clause. It just says 1,000 yen, as much Oden as you want. And I'm like, okay, let's go. But then it comes and give you a menu that then puts in an asterisk to say, oh no, you have to order one more thing. And it turned out to be one more thing for each person. And then so you want to continue the story?
まあそういうことがあって、まあちょっと、それでジョイがちょい横ぐらいになって、なんだなみたいになったんだけど、まあそれでまあそれはいいとして、まあ頼むやつを選べました。で、店員さんをまあピンポンで呼んで、で、店員さんが来て、おでんの食べ放題2つお願いしますって言って、あと、なんだ、それぞれ1品ずつ頼むじゃん。で、その時に、ここワンドリンク制なんですよって言われたんだよ。ワンドリンク制っていうのは、まあ一人、一杯は何か頼まないといけないのね。その飲み物で。で、そうなんですかみたいな。これはなんかおでんの食べ放題に限ったことじゃなくて、お店に入って料理を頼むときにドリンクは一人一つ頼まないといけないっていうルールだったらしくて、そんなのどこにも書いてないからさ、そうですかみたいな。
And also I should mention is that all the Olden maybe might have been your one thing that's like, you know, value or a good deal, but everything else was probably marked about 3-4 times from what you would normally expect at any other store in Japan. So when they're saying, oh, you have to buy one other food option and another drink option, even though the one other drink option wasn't even written down, it's saying you actually have to pay almost any combination you could do. You're paying at least an additional like 1,500 to 2,000 yen per person, which means you're coming in expecting you're going to pay 1,000 yen, and now you're leaving paying 3,000, and we're still not at the end of the story.
で、まあちょっとその時に、いやワンドリンク制って聞いてないよってなって、もうジョイはまあマジで激おこプンプン丸で、いやこれはなんだろう。そんなの聞いてないから、もうこの店出たいって言いたいみたいな感じになって、ちょっとそれやめてみたいな感じだったけど、まあでも、それをマジで、なんか、店員さん呼んで、もうこの店やめますって言いそうになった時に、その料理が運ばれてきたんだよ。だから結局、そのお店で食べることになったんだけど、まあでもそういうことってあんまちょっと日本人の私からすると、まあちょっとまあ、 ぼったくりだけども、まあしょうがないかみたいな感じなんだけど、アメリカ人の。
I will say that we didn't finish our order. To begin, we didn't even establish all order, and we said we were going to order one drink and wait. So in the time that we said that, he just assumed, oh no, I'm just going to bring out the food. And so we got stuck locked there. We want to talk about some other places and locations. So I'll say that aside from also a cockroach literally jumping out and coming into the establishment that we're in, which requires changing rooms, when we got to the end of the meal, then he also threw on, when we got the check and, we ended, each end is paying like 2,000 plus yen more than we intended, he also added an additional 1,000 yen of a fuck you, in my opinion, which was something called an otoshi, which we'll talk about now, which is basically like, it's like tips in America, except you don't see them coming or even expect them, and then they basically you just pay because you're at the store. It's like you can consider it a forced tip, or sometimes they give you extra appetizers. I don't believe we got that. I think we just got charged an additional 1,000 yen just because. And so this is, I guess, what begins. I have a little tier list I have opened up here, and this is where I start with the F tier. If you are looking to just spend some time, chill, maybe play a board game, get some food, in the F tier of our places you should go, izakayas I put on the very, very, very bottom of the F tier. Never do it. It's not worth it. I've done it, and I normally know this, but this place tricked me. I thought I didn't know it was an izakaya coming in, and yeah, it was an izakaya. What is an izakaya? It's basically like a bar combination with the food place. The food tends to be below average, which is still good compared to American standards, but it's still good, but it's like trashy compared to most Japanese food and places, and it's also overpriced. On top of also having many of the schemes we just talked about and this otoshi concept. Do you want to explain the Japanese what's it called? Idea of otoshi? Because to me, it's just a surcharge that you're not even aware of until the end of the meal. And it's not like tipping because you go in expecting to have the tip. It's just like they charge you extra and you're not even a culture where you expect it, especially in Japan.
なんかお通しっていうのは、まあ英語で言うとappetizerみたいな感じなのかな。まあちょっとしたなんていうんだろう、お皿の中に何かが入ってるみたいなね。でも大体しょっぱいのが多いんだけど、そのお通しを出す理由としては、お店側がお客さんにお酒を楽しんでもらいたいとかねっていう理由でお通しを出すのね。で、さっき見たところお通しの平均的な値段っていうのが大体300円から500円のところが多くて、でお通しやってるところもあればやってないところもあるのね。それはお店によって違うんだけど、でそのお通しっていうのはまずお店に入ったらなんか何も言わなくても出てくるのね。あ、お通しですって言って目の前に怒られるの。で、頼んでないのになんで来たんだろうって多分知らない人は驚くかもしれないんだけどね。特にフォーリナーズの人たちは。で、なんて言うんだろう。そのお通しっていうのはまず考えられない。その文化はないのかな？
No, I mean, obviously tipping is awful, but at least you know it's coming in and there's some justification that that you're out of your goodwill, you're the one deciding to tip because you technically don't have to. But this is like I said, in our case, we did not get extra food. We just it was like just an extra charge, just existence charge for coming in. And with all these things, I'm like, I don't mind paying like 6,000, 7,000 yen out of an establishment. What I don't like is getting tricked into doing so. And this place and izakayas in general are like 3 different levels of tricking you for subpar food. In Japan, and so that's why I hate them. And not to talk too much about izakayas, but one last note, because this is what inspired the episode. If you want to stay at a place where you can just order a bunch of food and get some value, just go to something called shabu shabu. I mean, explain what shabu shabu is. Please never go to an izakaya. It is not worth it. I mean, maybe go one time if you want to know.
でもね、じゃあ居酒屋をなんか敵対視するのは良くないっていうか、なんて言うんだろう、もうジョイは完全なる敵みたいな感じで言ってるけど。別に敵ではないんだよ。居酒屋っていうのは、その漢字にも入ってるように、いてお酒の屋ね。だからお酒を飲む、お酒とかご飯を食べるとこなんだけど、だいたい大人の人たちって居酒屋でご飯会とか、会社の帰りに居酒屋行こうみたいな感じになって、社交の場っていうかにもなってるし、当然お酒を飲む人はそういうとこ行ってね、お酒を楽しむ人もいるだろうから、なんかそうね、触れ合いの場としてはいいんじゃないけど、なんかもしその if you're looking for value だったら別にいいところもあるよね。その フードクオリティもいいし、あと、まあ当然なんか意味わかんないお通しとかもないし、お酒は注文しても注文しなくてもどっちでもいいとかね。そういう場所は本当におすすめじゃない？その、磯丸水産とかよかったじゃん。
I don't consider those we don't agree on that being izakaya. I consider izakayas are more like closed room spaces where they're meant for like a larger party, and like the whole point is drinking, and they just kind of have small food options that you're supposed to get on top that are overpriced. I don't consider an izakaya that just a place that sells alcohol. Most places sell alcohol. But like I said, so I'll explain what a shabu shabu is. Just like an all-you-can-eat buffet, like Japanese style buffet. The whole episode isn't about this, but if you're just looking to eat and get a lot of value, it's amazing. You can have 1,000, depending on the place you go to, from every 1,500 yen to like 3,000 yen, depending on what you want to all you can eat, whether it be like all you can eat, very high quality Japanese beef or pork, or there's some places that do fish. They also have a bunch of other, like you have like a bowl in the center of your table that you can like you kind of cook everything inside different broths. And there's a whole bunch of other food options outside of that, like ice cream, waffles, randomly, sodas, and other things like that. But so yeah, that's that. This is the F tier, and we will go from F tier to S tier, in my opinion. And moving on to D tier, I put karaoke's in quotations inside a big city and hotels. Do you want to explain why you think I put karaoke's in D tiers? What's your experience with karaoke's? Do you think they deserve to be in my D tier?
いや、これはね、
in cities. I put in cities.
いや、シティとか関係ないと思うけどね。
I have a different thing for rural area.
これは、学生だったらどこでもお得だよ。お得だし、まあ、時間帯によっても違うのね。まあ、あるカラオケ店だと、その、学生だと、なんだっけな。夜の6時以降でフリータイムで500円とか700円で入れるのね。すごくお得じゃない？学生だとね。でも、その大人だと、学生割引が効かないから、その分高いし、多分、4倍、わかんない。3、4倍違うんじゃない？ 2、3、4倍違うと思う。値段的にね。で、あと、そのカラオケのお店にもよるんだけど、あるカラオケだと、まあこれこそ居酒屋のさっきのワンドリンクオーダーみたいな、ワンドリンク制っていうのがあって、ワンドリンク頼まないといけないとかも、まあ、その看板には書いてないんだよ。けど、そのカラオケに行って初めて、このお店はワンドリンクオーダー制なので何か注文してくださいみたいな言われるのね。まあそれにはもともと書いてないわけよね。だからまあ初めて行った時はびっくりしたけど、今はそうなんだみたいな感じ。
Yeah, and this just for numbers, you end up spending around, like if you just stay there, I'd say you're an adult, you don't get some like crazy discount for just existing. If your goal is to just talk with some friends in a closed off area or just like any like social area, if you want to do it for 2-3 hours, you could end up spending like, just two people around 6,000 yen plus, depending like on the time of the day, of weekend or not, because of
how long is it?
Oh, that's what I'm saying. Like for example, this is an actual example. We ended up spending like 6,700 or something for like 2.5 hours.
That was 違うよ。That was.
I mean, make your excuses.
いや、あれなんだよ。フリータイム、まず上位が学生じゃなかったから、2人とも学生料金使えなくて、で、なんだっけな。フリータイムが安いのね。6時以降でフリータイムを使った方が安いのね。でも、上位は6時前に使う、まあ理由があって、その6時以降からの料金が適用されなかったの。だから5時50分に入ったんだけど、10分ぐらいいいじゃんって思うじゃん。けど、6時からなので、これは適用できませんって言われて、だからダボーで、ドリンク代取られたし、フリータイム分使えなかったから、その分のお金も払ったから。
We only did that because that was a cheaper option and we still ended up paying over 6,000 yen. So let's just be clear. My opinion is if you have to do this many different witchcraft options and optimizing, you're probably not going to a place that's very good value. So that's karaoke. You can also get food, but it's like izakaya pricing. I put hotels in D tier as well. I know there's no visual here for you listening. There's no visual for the other, I have my own personal sheet here. But the reason I put hotels in is it's just they're almost never really the cost, like most cost effective thing if you're looking to do them. Obviously, like there's a bunch of different types of hotels and you can do them, but if you're looking for an actual like traditional hotel, especially American style, you're probably spending anywhere between 6,000 to like ichiman if you're like really desperate for somewhere to find a long place to stay. The thing is, at least for hotels, they're upfront about it, and I respect that. So that's why they're not like F tier. And also they give you a whole bunch of other, laundry and all the other services. Moving into C tier, I put internet cafes and some other options, but internet cafes. Do you want to have we've talked about this in the middle section once, but want to talk about this? I don't think this is just. I think this has happened multiple times. That it's actually not as easy to use an internet cafe as you might think. Do you want to? I think we went to 2 or 3 and they're all.
場所によってあるところはなんか個室がなくて、なんて言うんだろう。隣の人とドアとかで区切られてはいるんだけど、空間が一緒なのね。だから上が空いてる感じなの。なんかトイレを想像してほしい。トイレってさ、下も見えるし、上も空いてるじゃん。みたいな感じでっていうところもあったし、あと喋っちゃいけないとかね、空間が一緒だからあんまりうるさく喋ってはいけないとか、あともう一つ、そうだ、なんか会員登録しないとネットカフェは使えないみたいな言われて、でその会員登録するのになんかわざわざ保険証とかわかんないけど、免許証とか身元を証明できるものを持って登録しないとできませんみたいな。
That was not like a nantoka. That was a literal. She was asked for her insurance card, her student card, as well as an address. And it's insane the amount of inquiries they're making to stay at a place that's just a worse version of a hotel where you're not being asked these same questions. So my opinion is completely insane. And you also have like to do app registration on top of that. They're just like, they might as well be asking you, give you your what's it called, the last 4 digits of a social security code, whatever. Yeah, so it's like insane the amount you have to give.
でもね、場所によっては本当にいいところあるよ。なんか私、いいところは例に出していいと思うけど。
What's in C tier? Like I said, C tier is not F tier.
池袋にあるなんかヘイリーズなんだっけな、カフェだっけなっていうインターネットカフェがそうなんかあるんだけど、なんかすごい内装がめちゃめちゃ綺麗で、それこそホテルっぽい感じの内装で、ドリンクなんていうの、ドリンクバーみたいなボタンでポチポチするやつだけど、ドリンクも飲み放題ですし、なんかソフトクリームもあったのかな、だし、あと中も結構選べる部屋があって、カラオケっぽい部屋もあるし、フラットタイプとか、あとシアタータイプみたいな、なんかいろいろあって、でフリータイムで多分3000円とかなんとかかな、3000、4000円かな、わかんないけど、6時間とか、なんか時間決まってて、その値段があるんだけど、なんかあそこ、ちょっと高いっちゃ高いのかなけど、なんか普通のカフェで勉強するとかに比べたら高いけど、でもそこでゆっくりなんか寝るとか考えれば安い方だと思うけどね。
Yeah, that's why what's in C tier is like if you're thinking about it as a replacement for hotels, there are instances where you can come in more clutch because you can sleep there. But if you're trying to compare it as a place, especially to hang out with friends, because then you're going to need to get a room that's larger, that can accommodate 2 people. And if you need multiple people, a lot of times both of them have to register, which is like if you're not a guy who has insurance coming into it and,
あれだよ、わかった。なんか、多分ね、予想としては、なんでそういうお店側が、なんていうの、身分証明とか必要なのかっていうのが、多分、やっぱりさ、人が、寝泊まりできる場所だからさ、この人がなんかなんだろう、悪いことっていうか、何て言うんだろうね、問題を起こしたりしたらさ、やっぱり警察沙汰になるじゃんって言った時にさ、誰がこういうことしましたっていうのをお店側が把握できるからっていうのもあるんじゃない？
I just completely disagree with you. I think it's a complete invasion of your privacy and ridiculous. Imagine going to McDonald's and they're like, well, some customers could come in and they could slap our people in the face. And so therefore we need your insurance to buy McDonald's. No, it's ridiculous. I completely disagree with you. But after this in C tier, I have game shops and love hotels. So love hotel, let's talk about love hotels real quick. I think love hotels are kind of like, if you're just talking like, you're expected to come with 2 people. I don't know if you could come with 3 if you're gonna.
いや、なんかね、私一個なんか面白い話聞いたことあるのが、なんか先輩の人で、なんだっけな。 なんかの受験かなんかのテストで、なんかホテルに泊まんなくちゃいけなかったらしいの。でも、そのホテルが全部閉まってて、空いてなくて、で、なんか唯一あったのが、まあ、それ、ホテルで、一人で行った、女の先輩でね、女の先輩が一人で、そこに泊まったっていう。面白くない？でも、だから一人で別に行けると思うよ。し、なんか最近だと女子会を、ラブホテルで、開く人もいるらしくって、それこそなんだっけな、なんか、新宿とかで、なんか、なんだろう、リゾートチックホテルで、なんか、女子で集まってパーティーしようっていうのもあるんだって。
Oh, I didn't know. That's interesting. I wonder if, yeah, for guys, if you can, because I know obviously you can do two people. You're not going to be questioned about that. And if you're just hanging out like one on one, I think it's probably more cost effective than net cafes in a lot of cases because they don't expect people to stay that long. Where net cafes, some people live there. So you probably could 3 hours, 6 hours at something that's cheaper than karaoke, internet cafes, and etc. The only thing about love hotels is, like I said, there's more. I feel like it's gonna be. I mean, this maybe we could check. Like, could you come with a party of 5 and just be like, it's gonna be a wild night. I don't know. Yeah, in Japan they might not be used to that, but I put game shops, like I said, in C tier as well, and it's not that game shops aren't like. So like in the US, I've mentioned before, where most like game shops you can just come in and you play and stay for free and chit and chat. In Japan, you can't, and it's actually pretty expensive to go to the most, like, just being frank, like most of like paid board game, just general shops with play spaces to stay there. And obviously it's like noisier where people are playing. It's probably gonna be cheaper than karaoke if you're just looking at a place to hang out and play some board games. But it also might not be like an ideal studying location, I would say, and so that's why I put it there. Moving on to our B tier, I have a slightly better version of game shops, which we talked about the episode in the middle section maybe a month ago, called Shukaijo, which are like just centers for doing whatever you want. Do you want to explain our experience again of one in Akihabara and like the price?
いくらだったっけ忘れたけど。
It was 2,000 yen.
It was?
Yeah.
6 hours か。
Yep.
なんか一人当たり 6時間で2000円ぐらいだったのかな。で、その場所っていうのは集会所で、なんかゲームとかただ話すだけでもその場所を使ってよくて、で、うちらは友達と一緒になんかでっかいボードゲームをやったんだけど、隣の席の人とかはテレビを使って、なんだっけ、スマッシュブラザーズやってたりとか、他のテーブルもボードゲームやってたかな。で、途中でさ、やっぱりさ、うちらボードゲーム6時間やってたわけだからさ、いや、最初に飲み物となんかお菓子買おうみたいになって、近くのコンビニまで出て、もう一回帰ってきて、で、またなんか買おうかっつって外出て、また帰ってきたっていうのもあって、なんか出入り自由だし、なんか、本来なら、この場所は、なんかソフトドリンクもなんか、オファーしてくれるみたいな感じだったから、なんかすごいお得だよねっていうのは思った。なんかちょうどうちらが行った時は、なんかソフトドリンクのマシーンが壊れてて、使えなかったけど、でも本来ならあるって言われて、6時間2000円で、しかもドリンクもついてきて、出入り自由で、なんか楽しめるってすごくないっていうのは思ったし、なんかポイントカードもあって、ポイントある程度貯まると、なんか1回無料かなわかんないけど、なんかっていうのもあって、やっていけるのかねって感じだけど。
Yeah, in terms of doing anything you want at any kind of volume level that you want, this is probably the best value you're going to get. We're going to talk about obviously the A tier and S tier things I have written down here, in which case you can kind of stay however you want. But in those cases, you normally have to be quieter in what we're talking about, and it can kind of seem as a little bit of in one of the locations you're not really expected to stay that long, but you can. But the other thing we have is put in B tier, so I put capsule hotels. Capsule hotels are obviously like normal hotels, but they're very small. One of the benefits being they're super, super cheap if you can find one, especially there's some in Tokyo. like they're only 2,000, 3,000 yen per night. They do adjust prices heavily though, depending on like when traffic's coming. So around New Year's, it can be super expensive. And the other downside is you're not going to have a guaranteed place to meet up, hang out with people, like a table or anything like that. But if you're just looking for like a space, you could hang out in front of the little capsule station you have, or they have like a lobby area, or sometimes like an upstairs or like lobby. They have lobby areas built in that you can just chill and stay in, especially if you're like a guest there. But the downside being a lot of times that they can be restricted strictly by like sex, and sometimes just women can't get in. Just like male-only capsule hotels are a very common thing I noticed.
なんか不思議だよね。だってさ、普通のホテルってさ、男性のみとかはないじゃん。しかもさ、私カプセルホテル泊まったことないか分かんないんだけど、カプセルホテルのさ、一つのカプセルってさ、あれでしょ？ロックできるでしょ
？No. I mean, no. Most of the time, it's you sleep in a capsule, and then like where I call it capsule, it's like you sleep in a small bed that's like a silo in the wall, and then you have a different place to store all your goods, and you can lock that, but you can't lock the like sleeping location.
だからか。だから男性のみ、女性のみとか。
Yeah, I was too nice brain.
セキュリティ問題とかさ、まあそんな感じでさ。
Well, there's banning women though. That doesn't seem like a good approach.
でもだって普通に考えてさ、そういうなんかビジネスホテル泊まるのって大体男の人が多いじゃん。
All I'm saying is that banning women for a problem of men sexually assaulting women is not a good approach to solving a problem. That's like saying, like, women shouldn't be allowed to walk on the street because get inside trains because sometimes people molest women.
なんかね、それね、そのね、ディスカッションね、私YouTube で見たことあるんだよね。なんかアメーバなんとかかんとかってやつで、朝ってさ、女性専用車ってあるじゃん。
Yeah.
で、その女性専用車っていうのは、まあ要するになんか男の人が痴漢してくるから、男と女を、朝の通勤時間だけ、分けようみたいな感じで女性専用車があるんだけど、なんか一人のなんかコメンテーターが言ってたのが、なんだ、犯罪を起こしてるのは、男の人じゃん。まあこの場合。で、なんだ、被害者の女性を一つの車両に、まあ監禁閉じ込めるのは逆なんじゃないかみたいな。だから男性専用車を作るべきで、女性専用車は作らない方がいいんじゃないみたいな言ってたんだけど、で、それに対する他の人が言ってたのが、まあ普通に電車に乗る人数的に男性の方が女性より、まあ圧倒的に多いじゃん。まあ働いてるし。働いてる人多いし。だから、まあ、利便性を考えると女性の方が少ないから女性専用車を作った方がいいんじゃないっていう結論にはなってたけど、まあ、似たような感じだよね。
Yeah, I mean, that would be a whole longer conversation, and we're getting close, so I do want to at least get people so they know what my opinion is on the A tiers and S tiers here. But I will say, last of the B tier, I put a karaoke inside rural areas. Basically, they're just tend to be much cheaper because they're actually desperate for people. Whereas like big city areas just take advantage of college teens coming in, and they get discounts, but they expect people to come in large groups, like from it's kind of like the izakaya thing. They expect a bunch of people to come in, and they know that one of the only places you can have this many people come in and accept them is going to be a karaoke place, and so they just feel happy to charge whatever they want. Whereas in rural places, they're just so much cheaper, and that's basically it. A tier. First of the A tier, and this is probably one of the most used places by all Japanese people, and it's coffee shops. Because you just
Starbucks.
Yeah, especially Starbucks. You just buy a drink, and you do this in America too. But people do, and like everybody's doing it. Like everybody's doing it, and so you don't, and you can just stay there for as long as you want, really, until they close.
でもさ、普通に考えてさ、なんかお店の人には申し訳ないんだけど、お店なんだ、例えばさ、一番安いコーヒー、まあ300円ぐらいとして、でさ。お店に迷惑じゃなかったら長時間いて、まあ3、4時間でいいや。3、4時間いて300円って考えたらめちゃめちゃお得じゃない？
Well, I'm just, you can do whatever you want. I'm just providing the information here. If you have 3-4 friends, you can go to a coffee shop, stay there for 4 hours. You could even bring a small board game if you're quiet. And you don't even have to be that quiet at cafes. That's the thing. It's not like dead silence. That's kind of as straightforward as it is. It's just really good value. And I don't really have anything. Obviously, I don't think you could pull out. Maybe some places have like a big table you could use. I'm trying to remember. They do have small tables you can use. So as long
カフェでそういうことやったら怒られる。
maybe you know if it was
なん
like
か場所による。
yeah, it depends on the place. But yeah, they're just it just
だって
to
ボードゲームカフェってあるじゃん。
yeah, the board game, yeah, a specific one, like okay, but yeah, you're gonna have less options in terms of like what you can do. But for most things, studying, chilling, hanging out, even like small, I think you'd be fine. If people can put their laptop and stuff, whatever, I feel like you could probably play a small like card game or board game at a coffee shop and you'd be fine. Oh, especially because a lot of times the ordering an area where all the staff work is completely separate from the chilling area. Well, they'll have like in a separate location, or especially for like the Starbucks, I remember, I haven't been to multiple of them actually. Well, they have a place because it's so commonplace. Like they just know people are coming in and they just tell you, hey, just reserve a spot before you order. And so, yeah, really good spot. And then the S tier, we talked about this before, but I wanted to give some additional notes for those people wondering about. And this is the Ofuro Cafe, which is like the bathhouse cafe. And earlier when we talked about them, or I guess just to clarify what they are, a place that you can study, work, relax, has onsens, has hot springs, or what's it called, outdoor, indoor. This depends on the location, but I'm speaking at one that we've like had personal experiences with. A lot of times they might have other things, like the one we went to had like Japanese rock baths. Not going to get into exactly what that is, as well as like little cubby areas where you can go into the walls, a place that has computer, access, a massage place built in, and a restaurant. And basically just to go in, obviously you have to pay for food if you want it, but just, you can go in from like the early morning until night, and you can just pay like 1,000 yen, 900 yen as a flat fee.
結構あれホームレスはいけないか。ある程度お金がある、家なき子みたいな人はお風呂カフェに住むことはでき夜はダメか。一日を過ごすことができると思う。
Yeah, especially since you can actually also play, like there are places that you're supposed to be quiet at, but some of them like they literally have places that you can like play board games. Like Jenga was there, and it's a pretty loud game. So you can pretty much do everything there. I guess see video games and stuff there, but if it was quiet enough, I feel like you could do it. And obviously you can study and stuff. So what's the difference between this and a spa, which is a question I got asked by one of our listeners, and I forgot to answer. It's that, this isn't just a relax area. This is also like work and like play. It's all built into one. And if you have one nearby, then I definitely recommend checking out. But the takeaway for this, the first section of the episode, I want to be, please never go to an izakaya. I hate them. I completely disagree with Ayumi. There's always a better option. Just do something else. That's my message from Joey. 戻りました。
Now we're back.
今回、日本で友達を作る方法について話したいと思います。まずっていうか、今週、新しい、私が知らなかった友達との、約束、小さなパーティーがあったんだけど、結局いろんな理由で誰も来られなくて、で、なぜ来られなかったというと、なんか誘った人は、なんか他の人、なんか2人の人を誘って、でもその人が、なんかお互いのことを知らなかったから、両方は参加したくなかった。
いや。
そんなわけないです。
One person didn't want to come to my place because it was kind of far for her. And then the other person was kind of willing and it was okay to come to my house. But he said since there will be strangers for him, so he just wanted to turn the opportunity down.
いや、でもその人だけじゃなくて、なんか最初の2人の人じゃなくて、1人の人と、他の、なんか、その人が来られなかったから、もう1人の人を誘ったじゃん。
Yeah.
なんか3人とかの話。とりあえず、情報は大事じゃないんだけど、その細かい情報はね。でも、私が思ったのは、こういう考え方、なんか、友達がいるとしたら、で、その友達と直接一人一人1対1だけなんか遊びたかったらそれは何も問題がない。でももしそのグループの中で一人の人、一人の人はそのグループの中の一人の人を知らなかった場合、みんな参加したくなくなる。
Yeah, I guess like many Japanese people are kind of afraid or like too shy to meet new people, especially if they don't have anything like in common. So,
in
because like,
common 説明してください。
in,
日本の in common.
I mean, like, if you're working at the same workplace or if you went to the same high school, same junior high school, then that means you're not strangers. But like, if you didn't go to the same high school or something, then yeah, that means there is no like common thing between you and the other person. Like if somebody has the same hobbies, then there will be some topics to talk about with that person. But generally, if you don't know what to talk about,
いや趣味の話じゃないと思う。なんか趣味があっていても、その高校の経験が共有されて なかったら、この人、趣味はなんか似てるかもしれないけど、なんか同じ高校になんか行ってないから会いたくないという考え方もあると思うんだけど、それが私が、私なぜこのことについて話したかったのは、私があいみ知らなかったら、その友達を作るのは本当になんかどうやってできるのかと思った。なぜかというと、外国人はもちろん日本になんか一生まだなんか行ってない人がたくさんいると思う。リスナーさんたちの中で、日本に行きたい、日本で住みたい、働きたいと思っている人がある程度いると思うので、もし他の友達作りたかったら、自分がその学校に通ったことないじゃん、日本の。でも同じ学校に通ったことないってことは友達作れないってなるじゃん。普通の人。なんか普通の外国人と普通の日本人。
Yeah, true. Well, like, I have been struggling to make friends in general, so I searched like how to make friends on Google and on YouTube, and then like they said it is difficult to make friends as an adult, and like there are some ways to make friends. First, you go to like a hobby group. Like if you like, how do you say, like if you like board games, then you can go to meetup, board game party or something. If you like language learning, you can join language learning groups. Yeah, something like that. So like at least you have like common things to talk about and also common things to do together. And also second, like you will be friends with friend's friend.
それが一つの、最も大事なステップかもしれない。その日本人となんか一人の日本人が友達になったら、他の日本人、なんかその以外の日本人の友達を作るのは優しくなると思う。なんかまず、あいみが自分の友達になったとしたら、そのコネクションだけで、なんかジョイとハンガーアウトしてるんじゃなくて、あいみとハンガーアウトしてるから、ジョイもし行ったとしたら、そんなに怖くなくなるじゃん。でも私が思ったのはいつもミートアップとかに行ってる時にほぼなんか外国人はほとんどでしょ今までの、なんか英語のことじゃなくてもただミートアップという知らない人に出会うのがもともとちょっとなんていうか拒否感があるだと思った、日本人は、でごめんなさい他の今リスナーたちの外国人手伝えないかもしれないけどアドバイスとしては一人の人の友達ができたら、日本人だね。
芋づる式に友達ができてると思います。芋づる式に。
でもそれができたら、ある程度、なんか未来の可能性が開くかもしれない。
なんかね、especially our listeners are pretty interested in language learning だから、ね、make language learning friends は it's the best way to make friends, I guess.
いやでも今までの日本での友達に関しては、一人の仲いいのなんかマブダチの日本人の友達がいるんだけど、 もっとなんていうか、アメリカ的、アメリカ系の日本人じゃない、なんか普通の日本人の友達作りたい。なんかわかる？今までの友達はなんか英語を勉強してるか、なんか外国人じゃないけど、なんかアメリカ系の日本人。
アメリカ系の。
なんかわかる？
who's interested in American culture ってこ
アメリカかぶれでしたっけ？
とか。OK。
うん。で、どうやってそのなんか日本人、なんか普通の日本人、なんかわかる？言ってることわかると思うんだけど、そういう人、なんていうか、会ったことはあるけど、本当になんか友達というか、その建前の壁、ちょっと、壊しにくいと思った。それが、今日の思ってたこと。また、質問があります。その、リサさんたちに。あやみの髪がアウトかどうか教えてください。アウトはどういう意味ですか？
Is it like proper
うん。
proper for hospital working at a hospital? I don't know.
医者としてはダメだと思う人を、ダメだと思われる人をぜひコメントで教えてください。私の外国人の目から本当に全然大丈夫で何も思ってないけど、多分今までの聞いた日本人はみんなアウトだ、ダメだと言ってるからサポートしてください。And we're back with the final section. And if you made to the final section, that means you send an email to lazyfluency@gmail.com with a comment, question, language related, and or otherwise. And this week we have 2 comments, one from Shockox and one from Oddity. First one goes like this, and they're both responding to our last topic on homeschooling. Homeschooling is easier with the internet than before. Siblings can. I couldn't back in the day. I wonder if it's not officially considered homeschooling. I think they can call it online school, but it's entirely done at home. But it's technically attending school and being on the roster without stepping foot on the campus. Either way, it's way easier than it was before, but it's a huge contributing factor. My low-income family with no non-working adults can leave the kids with some computers and they get their education. Whether it's as effective or not is something I'm unsure about, but at the end, they get a diploma. And this is, I guess I'll read, could be 2 comments about homeschooling before I'll get back to this. And Oddity commented on homeschooling saying, I will do a functionalist analysis because, well, that's just what I do. The implementation of universal primary education began in the late 19th century following the Industrial Revolution. Because of the new form of work it required literate employees. So the main purpose of the education system is to train citizens as effective employees. If we accept this, homeschooling doesn't make sense. Undoubtedly, the very system that will later absorb students as workers knows best what it needs. This parental attempt to control kids and protect them from the state/system for whatever reason is therefore futile, because eventually all of them will be thrown into the workforce and will have to cope, unless the parents have some radical plan to keep them separate from the rest of society forever. This is not to say I endorse this approach, I just think it serves its purpose well. And let's see. Oh, yeah. As a partial product of one of the most indoctrinative education systems, the communist one, I can say that you don't need to go as far as homeschooling to offset the undesirable effects of the public education system. It's enough to have a healthy, free-thinking, pluralist environment at home to counter the authoritarian one at school. On the other hand, I didn't turn out to be a very dutiful employee, so who knows, maybe I'm in the wrong. Those were a lot of thoughts on homeschool, but have you heard about, is that a thing in Japan where you aren't homeschooling, but you're taking all the education like online that you'd be getting at a normal school?
なんかそれ通信高校って言って、通信って言うんだけど、なんかね、私の学校でも、ちょくちょくちょっと学校行くのが辛くなっちゃって、その通信に途中から変わった子とかもいたんだけど、多分通信ってそうだよね。なんか家でできて、でたまに学校に行くのかなんかわかんないけど、要するに今行ってる学校が合わないから家でもできますよっていうので、ホームスクールとは多分ちょっと違うのかな。ホームスクールだとさ、完全に親であったりっていうのが責任持つじゃんけど、この通信っていうやつは通信学校っていうのが責任っていうかを持つからちょっと違うとは思うけど、そういうシステムはあるよ。
I mean, that seems pretty similar to what Shock just was describing. And I actually think I've heard about it before now that I'm thinking about it. if I guess the existence of that does put into question the like general point of homeschools. Like Oddity was positing that if we just assume that it's to create effective employees, then one would ask, does being socially competent help for that? And I guess it depends on the role you're doing. Generally speaking, to me, like the social component is huge. So, I do feel like that everybody benefits from that. And at the very least, everybody deserves a place. Because I always assume your parents are not helpful for you and they're not good for you. And in that condition, can a child get in touch with reality? And I like that public schools force people, make it so kids cannot be just boxed in by their parents from the real world. And I feel like to me, that's the strongest argument for like mandating homeschooling. But in terms of like whether they create, like whether the goal of an education system is to train effective employees, even if that's the intended goal, I don't think the citizens have to accept such a proposition nor care about it, honestly. So is it your opinion? Do you think Japanese, like what goal do you think schools in Japan have? If you were to ask like the government, do you think they'd say it's to make sure you have good employees or citizens or what? Have you thought? Like what is the goal of
ゴールなんかあれじゃないの。まあ人並みに仕事ができる、仕事ができて社会を支える人材になれるようにするのが義務教育ではないんでしょうか。
I mean, I'm more like, because Oddity ties us to the Industrial Revolution, and at least in the United States, although you could like point to that and like make economic argument as well. I do think there's an argument that a lot of the reasons for wanting to have universal homeschooling can be tied to the foundations of a lot of like American education ideals, which is the idea that like having an educated population is intrinsically beneficial for a lot of like valuable and like or measurable and non-measurable ways, and not directly tied 100% to the economy. Like all of our like most are like the schools that we talked like about in the U.S. And a big aspect of that is almost none of it is related to like the work opportunity outside. It's like, especially when people critiquing them, like, oh, they're so woke. It's all about social justice. It's all about things that aren't relative. People don't say, when people are talking about American schools, they'll say like, oh, maybe they're too woke, they're too socially progressive, or they're they're all about doing these new ideas and things like that, and they don't focus on everybody comes out of here becomes a Google employee. Or everybody comes out of here. Like, I never hear rhetoric like that talking about like the big schools. It's all about the search for knowledge and maybe critiques about whatever the new like thoughts are. But I feel like it'd be, at least for the American situation, and like for my own education, I didn't view like but I probably didn't think as much as I needed to about school. I think for you from the beginning, you knew like you were shooting for med school. But for me, I went because partially because it's a thing to do, partially because especially from my dad's recommendation, he's like, I think it'll make you more like well-rounded person, and it did for me. So he wasn't even interested about the job thing specifically. So
なんかね、なんだろう。今思えばさ、数学とか、科学は私は使うか。物理とかね。絶対いらないじゃん。社会で働く上で。なんなら日本だと理系に行ったのに。研究者とかじゃなくて普通の会社に就職する人が結構多くて、で大学に進学するのがなんかいい会社に就職するためにだけそういう目標っていうか実際そういういい大学行ってる人が多くて、だからなんて言うんだろうね、本末転倒っていうかなんかただブランドを持ちたいからっていう人がめちゃめちゃ多くて、それ意味あるのかなっていうのは正直考えちゃうけど、でも今なんか学歴社会とかっていうのもなんか最近変わりつつあるけど、でもやっぱりみんな東大出身ですって京都大学出身ですって言ったら頭いいねってなるから、みんなそういう人を取りたいから会社側がね、だからやっぱりいい大学行きたいよねっていうのが日本のなんだろうね、学歴社会みたいな感じかな。
Yeah, I will say from my opinion, one more thing that I thought about with regards to this is I'm extremely, as much as like, oh, I'm American or whatever, because I think it's funny. I have very, very little ties to a country. Like globalization is becoming a bigger and bigger thing, except for some countries. Shout out to you, Russia. I see you. And because of that, I really tend to dislike, at least, even whether if the rationale is that we should let homeschooling be mandatory, because I think I am on against homeschooling generally speaking, but I don't like the argument of doing it from we want to make good employees for this specific society. I'm not patriotic to any country as far as I'm concerned. If Japan, Panama, and the United States came into war, I'd just say, bro, just leave me out of it. Like I don't feel patriotic. I don't identify with Panama nor the United States nor with Japan. I think they're all cool places. I've moved so many different times. I think I've mentioned before high school, I changed school 7 times. I find all of this, I wish there was, although it's conspiracy theorists, like I wish there was more, like, I don't know. I think a lot of people might be like me who are half or mixed, or have experience traveling a bunch of different locations, but I really don't like the effects, I feel like, of the tribalism, that especially if we're rooting that tribalism from the ground up through an education system, even if the majority of the population is going to be like that. I will say there's one more comment I wanted to address. Aside from Oddity throwing out how much she loves kotatsus, I will say I've been very much enjoying the kotatsu life. But the comment is from Shockox, and I don't know how much I can address it, but I'll read it, which is, it makes me want to ask, who is your least favorite language YouTuber and why? I just know it's a 5 podcast long rant of epic proportions. It's okay. We're in a safe place to do it. I'm not looking for that beef. I have a bunch of people I really don't like. I'll just tell you, I don't think there's I don't think I could say I'm really a big fan of any language YouTuber. Maybe some, but generally speaking, I would say I'm very negative about most of what I see. And I'm not trying to, I don't really have any interest in YouTube beef. It's not my thing. I thought about, I'm like, I could probably make, because I fundamentally disagree with a lot of the biggest people in the space, I could make a video on that, probably would get views, but I just don't like the negativity. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I know you want to hear me rant about it, and I could rant for 5 hours or longer. I don't think you have any like language. Do you follow any? Do you have any positive language YouTubers, Japanese YouTubers that you like?
Japanese YouTuber で
Yeah, that you like or something.
Speak in English?
Or anything, language YouTubers. Do you have any recommendations? I don't know if
Language. なんかね、YouTuber なんだっけな。YouTuber じゃないんだけど、なんか podcaster で、All Years English っていうポッドキャストがあるんだけど、そのポッドキャストは英語を勉強する人のためのポッドキャストで、いやめちゃめちゃ聞きやすいと思うけど、そういうことを聞いてんじゃないの？違う？
No, that's what I'm asking. And I'll have you know, Shocks, I love ranting. It's just that, and I know this wouldn't directly start beef, but I feel like this would start me. This would give me the runway that I want to make a complete deconstruction and attack on multiple people. And I'm not going to do that. My soul wants to do that. I'll let you know, my soul wants to do that, but I'm just not. I'll put it this way. I struggle enough as it is to just get normal video done on a normal time frame, and with the podcast, it's like I'm less like like having a less. I lower the bar, the standard that I put on myself. But, and as you can tell, I still haven't released another video from main channel. I've been working since the last video to get a new video out. It's just been really hectic. And if I also had to worry about miss up the main channel with random response videos, because I'm getting beef, but it's not even that I care to respond. It's just, I'm like, bro, for me, I have a certain bar. I want quality, with main channel videos, and I don't want to dilute them with having to make response videos and waste my time thinking about that. Because for me, it's just I guess there's an argument to be made that, you can help, other people who have this or whatever. But I think there are more positive ways to do that. And I just have no interest in, getting in any sort of back and forth with people who I just think have nothing productive to provide on a subject. Although I'll listen, I'll listen to them, or to, I'll listen to something. I'm always listening to people who I disagree with. But at the end of the day, I don't really right now, I don't think I really consume any Japanese language content at the moment in terms of from other YouTubers in the space. in terms of like language focused content. And so you could take that as I could not give an endorsement to anybody is another way to phrase it for a lot of different reasons. Yeah, I'll leave it on that. Apologies for not being able to directly shout out somebody, but it might make you think I'm not that really positive about the space. I guess I could summarize and say one of the reasons for. I feel that there is a puritanical approach to Japanese language learning. It's also been hijacked by people who I think are on, let's say, do not know what a life is and cannot understand what being a normal person is, and can only give advice to people who are equally, let's say, almost autistically like fixated on doing one goal and cannot figure out how to generalize that advice for real, for people with real lives. And then on top of that, aside from that, I think there's just a lot of clickbait, a lot of like over simplifications of what language learning is, and just very shallow level, just topics about language learning, or just boring and just very generic. Like 15 years ago, I don't know. I'm not saying effort correlates with quality, but I'll just say I think all my thoughts are put in there. I don't think Amy really watches this, so my apologies for so much English here. But my apologies, Shako, because I'm not being able to directly answer your question. I hope you can understand why. Oh, thanks for the questions, everybody. That bell means we've reached the end of today's episode. Thanks for joining us in another lazy conversation towards fluency. If you have any language-related questions and are just looking for general advice, send an email to lazyfluency@gmail.com and you might respond in the next episode. Also, make sure to check out our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and more. We'd appreciate the support. This has been Joey.
And Ayami.
Signing off.
じゃあねー。